here's everything that you need to know about Cascade Mountain. What's going on, Midwest skiers and riders? Matthew Zaransky with MidwestSkiers.com. Today we got a great episode for you here. We are going to be exploring Cascade Mountain. We're kids ski free. We'll talk about that in just a second. This one's got a special place for me. I was a pass holder there when I was down in Chicago for a while. Excited to get back into some of the nitty gritty. And it was really fun to ski this last year. But before we dive into the POVs, as we always do, let's give you some basic information about Cascade for those that aren't aware. I filmed this footage on January 22nd, 2024. Now, I've said this with all these videos, but if you don't know or watching this years from now, 23-24 was just a poor season for natural snow, but also just snowmaking weather. So if you see some brown spots and things like that, I mean, that was just the year that we had. So location of Cascade Mountain, it's located in Portage, Wisconsin, about 3 hours from Chicago, 1 hour from Madison, an hour and a half from Milwaukee. And one I do want to point out, it's about 3.5 hours from Minneapolis. And a lot of people don't think about going that way, but it's fairly close to the Minneapolis region as well. So something to consider if you're in that region, you haven't been down to Cascade, it might be worth a visit. Opening dates for the season, they usually always aim for the weekend of Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving. That's like their gold standard. They're always going to do that. Usually they don't open earlier than that. They're more on the mindset of we're going to blow as much snow as possible and open with more terrain. Sometimes it's a little bit later, but that's kind of their general goal. And then they are wrapping things up about mid-March, about 2 to 3 weeks into March, just depending on conditions. So they don't go super duper late, but very respectable season. And they do a great job making snow up there. They do daily operations once they get open as well. So kind of once they get the ball rolling on that, they're going to be open every day of the week. Pricing, as of filming this video, peak weekend or holiday adult tickets are open to close are $99 and then $79 on the non-peak or weekdays. Night tickets are $55 for those peak or holidays and then $43 for non-peak. Now I'm going to take a note here. We talked about this just a second ago. But kids under 12 ski free with a paid adult, up to 5 kids. So if you go and you buy a $99 adult ticket and you have 5 kids with you, they don't even have to be your family members, from what I understand. They just, if they ride in your car and you take them there, they will ski for free. So that is a huge value. So even though some of the pricing seems a little high for the Midwest, it's absolutely a great deal, especially if you have children. One thing I didn't mention about the location, it's also 20 to 30 minutes south of the Dells. It's great to be able to stay in the Dells if you have kids and then hop on down to Cascade to do, some skiing. And then you can be up in the water park capital of the world, which for some reason is in Wisconsin. Now, one thing I will note is that you do have to pre-purchase your tickets on weekends and holidays. So you might be able to buy them the day of, but they usually sell out. So if you're planning on going on a weekend, especially a busier weekend, make sure you buy those tickets in advance. Now, it's a good and a bad thing, right? Because it's kind of frustrating that you have to think in advance because a lot of skiers, and we base it off of weather and how conditions are going. But now the plus side of this is that they are capping the amount of people that are going to be at that resort. So you're never going to go there and it's going to be swamped. When I was growing up, Cascade was crazy. It was always swamped. There was lines everywhere. That's not the case anymore. They really do a great job of controlling crowds because of this, and they can know how many people are coming, if they need to staff up, where they need to open lifts, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you buy those tickets in advance. Now, they do open more tickets sometimes as things become available. So if they're not there when you first check, you just might want to check again because sometimes they do open up. So just something to keep in mind. The one exception to this is the Skiing Wisconsin Passport, where you don't need a reservation. So Skiing Wisconsin Passport's a great deal from that standpoint because you can always just walk on up, give them your Skiing Wisconsin Passport, and it's good. Another thing to be aware of is they are a cashless operation. So they do have machines that'll be able to, you can transfer your cash into a Visa card, but you're not going to be able to pay with anything on site, beers, food, any of that stuff with just cash itself. Something to just be aware of before you get there. Number of trails, they have 48 marked trails. Number of lifts, they have 11 lifts. That includes 1 carpet, 1 rope, 8 chair lifts, and 1 tubing carpet. Obviously, we don't really cover tubing, but it is there, so we'll count it as part of that. Vertical rise, we always use Google Earth for this just because it's the most accurate. We know that skiers like to inflate numbers sometimes, okay? I was coming up with about 400 feet of vertical rise. So that's pretty good for the Midwest. That's definitely you're starting to get into that upper tier of vertical rise for the Midwest. So there's one more thing I want to talk about really quick before we dive into the POVs. Let me just show you this list right here. This is like all of the names that they have. Like I have a page and a half of runs and their significance. So I'm just going to say it right now. I don't know if I'm going to have time to get through all of these. I'm going to do my best. You know, we got time, obviously, on chairlifts and during the runs, but there might be some that I skip. So to the Walls family, to the Cascade family, I'm sorry if I miss some of these. First of all, it's amazing that you put so much thought into all of your runs. It's awesome. And I wish more ski areas did this because this is amazing. All right, we're going to get started all the way on Looker's left. And this is the B-Dub chair. This was an expansion done in 2016. We're going to talk a little bit more about that throughout this video here. But this little like pod of 3 runs here, E-Wok, AWOL, and B-Dub, they're all named after Vicky and Rob's sons. That's the owners, Vicky and Rob Walls. So E-Wok is for Evan, AWOL is for Adam, and B-Dub is for Brennan. So those are all named. And you're going to notice that there's a lot of naming. Basically, the Walls family, the entire Walls family pretty much has a run here. And I believe it all started with Debbie. Debbie's run. She is the oldest sister of Rob. For her birthday, she got a trail named after her. And that's what kind of set this off, where everybody then got a trail named after them. So as we go through, I'll try, like, again, I'll do my best. But this pod of skiing it's my favorite at Cascade, and I think it's super underrated. It's exactly what they needed when they opened this, and these runs are so special because for people like me that have been skiing Cascade since I've been like 3, we had to look at these runs for like 20 years, if not more than that, because they were cut back in the 80s. We had to look at these, and we couldn't ski them, and then in 2016, bang, we could finally ski them. So it's a great pod of runs because it gives it a consistent intermediate pitch that, you know, was kind of missing from the front side, the original runs over on the front. We're going to get started with E-Wok over on skiers far right. Now this one, they all have pretty similar pitches. This one's just going to be a little bit further out and kind of swing back in a dog leg. But as you can see right off the bat, you know, kind of drops in, and it's just going to keep this like intermediate, consistent pitch throughout the entire run. You know, it's a great width of a run. You know, it's not too wide where you feel like you're just skiing a huge open bowl, but it's not so narrow that it's super tight and things get crowded. It's actually a perfect width, and I think they did a great job with designing these runs. I mean, this was all part of a master plan that was done back in the 80s. There's still further development that they can push into for the years to come past these runs, and that's something that they're keeping on the horizon for the future development as well. But so this will dog leg to the left here and then kind of swing back to that chairlift that we just rode. I'm going to talk about something that's really weird, but they have this porta potty up here on the right, and it's not like a porta potty. It's like a permanent porta potty. It's got a heater in it. It's awesome. I don't know why. I just need to point it out. It's right there on the right-hand side. So there is, like, you can use the bathroom in this pod, but that's, like, really it. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back to the main area. The next one here is AWOL. So this is going to be closer to kind of just right next to the lift. This one has a same thing, just a really, really nice pitch, intermediate groomer. Oh, these are just so fun. And like I was mentioning, it was just a compliment to the terrain that's kind of in the main original area. It was such a great addition. One of the suggestions I would have for you if you're skiing, if you're going to be skiing this pod, I would recommend starting here, because a lot of times what happens is if you're not a Cascade regular, they all start either on the City Pop Express or on the Mountaintop Express, and they don't work their way over to this pod until later in the day. So if you want fresh cord, low lines, usually this is the place to find it. So you'll find a lot of the locals skiing here early morning, and what they do is they actually go the opposite direction. So they start moving the other way, and then the crowds kind of come back, and it's like you're almost going against the crowds. You're going the other way, which is fantastic. So, and then the last one, main run in this pod is B-Dub. This one goes right under the chair. Super lappable, super nice. This is just a great series of runs right here for anybody that's an intermediate or even advanced skier. Just really fun. And man, you gotta love it. You gotta love these runs. And it just, again, so special for us because we just had to look at them for years driving up the highway. We're like, when are those going to open? They open in 2016, and the other ones will open at some point. I don't know when. I don't even know if they know when, but they will. So hopefully our children get that same feeling, you know, in a number of years. They get that same feeling that we got when those things opened. Man, I remember when they announced that expansion, and it was a big deal, big undertaking. It's something that we're looking forward to in a long time. So the next trail that we're going to take is actually called, well, it's Trail 24, and then we're going to take Bear Down. So Trail 24 has got a fun story. So the original survey master plan that they did back in the 80s, this trail was originally named Trail 24. So they decided, you know what, let's just keep that name on there. That's why it's called that. And then Bear Down is obviously for the Chicago Bears, just homage to all of the Chicago folks that come on up, including myself. And then Pack Attack on the other side is obviously for the Packers. So you gotta have the balance there. You're right on the border. You know, you're gonna get people from both sides. But these are just kind of connector runs. Bear Down is how you get to that pod. And then Trail 24, if you took it all the way, we kind of cut back. If you took Trail 24 all the way down, that would dump you out back over to the old pod of runs. There's also one other thing I want to point out here. If you look to our left, so that's far out, that's the big turn by far out, but right underneath that is a new gladed area that they just put in as well a couple of years ago, and that's called the Emmer Glades, and that's named after Emerson. That's one of Rob's granddaughters, so that's pretty cool as well. Now, it wasn't open just because their coverage wasn't great in there. Wasn't ready to just gash up my skis, but that's really cool to see them adding some glades in here as well. Now we're going to do Walzy Way, obviously named after the Walls family. These are the new cabins, by the way, on the left-hand side here. And up here on the left, you're going to see a very important run. This is named Sarah's Smile, and this is named in honor of Sarah Holm, a local ski and sit ski racer whose life was tragically taken in a car accident of June of 2016. The shape looked like a crescent, like a smile, and since Sarah was known for having such an upbeat, smiley personality and having a contagious smile, they decided to honor her with that run. Again, just amazing that Cascade put so much thought into these named runs, and we'll get to another one a little bit later, but it's amazing. So that's where that trail name comes from. We're going to work our way down Walzy Way, and we're going to dump out into Far Out, and then we're going to eventually go to Bridge Ridge, which has a bridge on it. Kind of exciting, right? I remember as a kid that was really exciting to be able to go over the bridge. But this will take us into the original pod that, you know, Cascade had back in the early 2000s when I would ski it, the Cindy Pop kind of pod that we'll get into in just a second. So this is Far Out. We don't do a POV of the full Far Out, but you kind of see it on the map. We'll talk about it a little bit later. It's kind of the ridge that you drop into all these runs, and it kind of circles back past the tubing. We're going to duck into this guy right here, Bridge Ridge. As you can see, it's really narrow. The one we're going to do a little bit later is also very narrow, but this one is a good one too. You know, difficult just because of how narrow and tight these trails get. And then this is going to funnel you back over to now the Cindy Pop Express. So now we're going to be entering into that pod, and we're going to kind of stay in there. So if you wanted to get back over, you're going to have to take Easy Does It over to Pack Attack and then Bear Down, and then that's how you would get over to that B-dub section. We'll show all this on screen after we kind of wrap things up, since we didn't do some of these connector runs, get the POV of that. But first, we're going to go up the Cindy Pop Express. Cindy Pop Express. This is a Lightner Palma high speed that was installed in 2016. I didn't mention it earlier, but B-Dub, the fixed grip Lightner Palma that we rode first, that was also installed in 2016 as part of this expansion. So the original Cindy Pop actually stopped at the very top. I'll kind of show you where it stopped. And then they extended this lift, and what that enabled them to do is basically put a run that then would connect all the way to that B-Dub area. So it's really cool how they did it too. Matt Voss, their general manager, basically came up with this idea for putting a bridge so they could still have the parking up here. So the original lift stopped about here, and this is where you would ski Cindy Pop. And that was pretty much it. You would have some of these runs come down, but that was it. You can see the parking lot on my left here, paved by the way. So you can park up here, regardless if you're a ticket, you can buy tickets or redeem your tickets up here as well. But they put this bridge in right here so they could still have the run. And that was Matt Voss who thought of that idea. I think it's brilliant because it still allows you to then drive up there. You have access, so you can get to the Daisy Lodge, all that cool stuff. So for this one, we're going to work our way down Cindy Top. Obviously, this top of Cindy Pop. We're going to take that East Ridge, and then we're going to kind of duck into what is Radical Rob. So Radical Rob is named after Rob Walls, the current owner. That's that, you know, that area you can park, kind of gets congested with all the people hanging out. It's actually really cool. I love that. Being able to park there, you can kind of tailgate a little bit. It's really pretty special. Again, this is like more that far out run. It kind of does wrap all the way around, but it's also the way that you get connected to all these more difficult runs as well. So you're going to kind of take it that catwalk down and then get right in there. So here we are, Radical Rob. Again, another narrow one, not quite as narrow as the other two. Got a really nice pitch. You know, it's just a fun run. All of these runs in here, these Black Diamonds, I just remember as kids, they're all similar, but they're so different. The way that they're cut, they did such a great job of cutting them in unique ways where they're, even though they're pretty similar in pitch, they just differ a lot in the way that they're shaped. So some of them are a lot narrower, some are just kind of a direct fall line, some kind of take a little more dog leg action, and this will just kind of send you right on out to that Cindy Pop lift. So now we're going back up, and we're going to do Cindy Top again. This time, though, we're going to do PW. PW is actually named after Phil Walls, Rob's dad. And the story goes with that he didn't want to have a radio number back when he was working at the resort, so everybody called him PW on the radio. So that's where this run's name came from. So this one's got a pretty direct fall line. As you can see, we're kind of starting to get less into like the cuts and around, but this is another fun one. All of these runs are just really great. If you're, you know, a more advanced skier, they're just a great little playground, if you will, to kind of test your skills and get through some of these cool little like sections that they have here. All right, so this time we're actually going to take Walzy Way to Sarah Smile, which we talked about earlier, and we're going to do Narrow Margin on our way down. That was that one right next to Bridge Ridge. This is going to be their narrowest run. Pretty exciting stuff. It's a cool little, you know, change of pace. I like it. There's actually like a hidden waterfall back there too. If you kind of keep your eyes peeled, especially if you come from far out and you're looking up, there's a little waterfall that's kind of tucked in back behind there. It's stuff that you don't see unless it's kind of the off season, but it exists back there. So again, this far out area kind of does tend to get a little congested. It's a really popular run with kids because there's a lot of like side hits that you can do. But as you can see, this one already from the beginning is super narrow to get into. Kind of comes back and then dog legs back left, and it'll take you right back over to that Cindy Pop Express. As you can see, lots of people struggle with this narrowness up here. So if you're an advanced skier, this is actually kind of a fun one because it will test you a little bit, making sure you got your small turns, your small radius turns all dialed in. Again, this pod of runs is very unique. It's crazy how they took terrain that you would think would be pretty similar, just from looking at the pitch of everything, and they've really turned it into a pretty special area with very defined runs on each of them. Next, we're going to take Cindy Top on down to Screamin' Steven. This is named after Rob's brother, Steve. So this is going to have a pretty similar pitch to Cindy Pop, which we'll do next, but it's a little bit less traveled. So if you find that Cindy Pop's seeing a lot of traffic, a lot of times what I'll do is hop on over here, and you get a really similar effect. It's a pretty similar run, but it's a lot less travel just because Cindy Pop's kind of that iconic run that everybody associates with it, but it's got a really similar fall line. So starts out a little bit mellower and then kind of breaks about halfway down here in just a second, and then you're going to get that like kind of steeper pitch where you can get some nice, really high speed turns in. It's going to start right here. And this will feed you right on down to Cindy Pop Express. Okay, my favorite, it is. It's my favorite run at Cascade. It's gotta be. It's gotta be. It's always been since day one. I do miss the original lift, sort of, but Cindy top to Cindy Pop, top to bottom, Cindy top, Cindy Pop. I would have never thought that this would have been a thing if you would have asked me, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, if this was going to be a thing, and here we are. This is named after Rob's sister Cindy, and the pop came from the shelf, which we kind of just saw in the last one, that you can get some air and kind of pop off of, and we'll see that in just a second. But the pitch of this run, it's for me, it was everything when I was a kid. It was like you could gain a lot of speed off the first half, and then you get these steep turns. Right now, it kind of breaks over, and now you're getting into these nice, steep, high-speed turns, and it's just so fun. I have a lot of great memories. Again, everybody's favorite run comes with their favorite memories, and this run is really special to me because I just have so many memories of just accomplishing a lot, skiing it backwards for the first time. So this is a really special one for me, and it's still my favorite run at Cascade. It's just got to be. It's got to be. And then we're going to come on down, and we're going to actually ski Anniversary. And Anniversary gets its name from being named the same year that Cascade had its 25th anniversary. So that's where the name Anniversary comes from. This is a little narrower, and this is actually a great way to get over to that Cindy Pop region because not many people ski this at all. Like, you will find fresh corduroy like midday. Like, you can start to see some of the corduroy right there. I mean, this was filmed, I think, around 2 o'clock, and there's still corduroy to be had out there. So it's a great way to bump over, and it rarely gets skied. So I would definitely check that one out. First, we're going to start with Upper North Wall. We're going to dive into Coaster, and then we're going to hit North Wall, which is another iconic run. Coaster is a fun one because this is actually named because they used to have a mountain coaster that would cut through this little path right here. It only ran for a handful of years, but that's where that name comes from. North Wall gets its name, obviously, because it's facing north and south. Before they added Cindy Pop, this was part of the original, I think it was 8 runs that they had, and this is a good one. This, again, has that pop and then kind of like come over the top, and there's just a really nice steep series of turns here that are really, really fun. I love this one. This is another one that I could lap all day. Just some great terrain here. So now we're going to work our way over and ride the Mountaintop Express. Oh, this was one of my first high speeds that I rode. This was installed in 1998 by Doppelmayr. You can actually see the bell. Doppelmayr gives when they install new lifts, they usually give them a bell. You can see that bell in the bar at the main chalet. So if you want to check that out, that's kind of cool. This is the OG high-speed lift. Goes right up the middle, and this is what I would say the lifeblood lift of Cascade. So this is by far the most crowded. It's going to serve the most terrain. It's great for beginners because everything to my right is pretty much more of a intermediate run. And then everything to my left gets more advanced as you go. So, you know, if you're a beginner, top to bottom run, we're going to ski some of those a little bit later, but this is the lift that you're going to ride if you want to go full top to bottom. So underneath us, we have, I would say one of their signature runs is Manitou, and that goes from like basically top to bottom. And then they also have a park here with a rope. The rope wasn't running while I was there. I think they run it on weekends, but they have a nice jib park kind of set up here. And then JJ, which I kind of get into a little bit later, that's going to be their bigger feature park. They didn't have it built out just because they were still blowing some snow, but they had some kind of like mounds set up for pushing. Now this run we're going to take is Upper North Wall, but we're going to connect to a really special run. This is JL2, and this is another one that is named in honor of Jared Law and Justin Lentz, who passed away in an avalanche while on a backcountry trip in Colorado. So another great trail name by Cascade here. It used to be called Mogul Monster. They stopped making moguls on it. They widened it out. They put this new lift in that unfortunately wasn't running, but this is now a great run. It's completely changed what it used to be, and I think it's a lot more fun now. Honestly, it's a lot more spread out. It's good for high speed turns, and I really enjoy this. And again, I just gotta give Cascade mad props for these names. They're just awesome. I love seeing ski areas taking the time to really, you know, think about the names that they have and put a lasting legacy into them. So great run, great name, gotta love it. All right, so we're just going to take a quick run through the park here, just so you can see that. This is their mountaintop park, kind of their jib park up here, serviced by a rope tow when it is running. And then on the left, they have a couple of jumps. We're going to actually go through that pod in just a second here. But you can see some nice features right under the lift, easily accessible. And when that rope's running, it's super nice to be able to take some hot laps on that. Now, this time we're going to actually take that left path and then continue on through Manitou, which is kind of that iconic run that runs right underneath the high-speed quad. You can see they got some small jumps set up here as well. Now, it is note that you don't have to take this run to get to Manitou. You can actually take some of the runs that we'll do in just a second, and it kind of does link up. But this one is a direct kind of pathway in there. And then this will open right on up and take you to Manitou. So there's a bunch of ways to get to Manitou. You can either take Upper North Wall, you can take this route, you can go through the park. But this run is really fun, super duper wide, great intermediate pitch. I mean, this is a classic Cascade run. It's always a good time. This lift on the left here is a 1988 Boarderland. They don't run it very often, so I've only actually ridden that lift maybe a handful of times in my entire life. So now we're going to start to work our way over to the further right side, which is serves more of the beginner intermediate runs. There's a lot of little like connecting runs in here. This one we're taking is Glades, and then this is going to come out to Upper Ptarmigon. It's named after the bird. It's one of the original 8 trails that Cascade opened with. And this is a great intermediate run. As you can see, there's a lot of different ways you can zig and zag through this like little pod here. And then you're going to come on down, and it's going to be this like narrow intermediate run that doesn't get skied a whole lot. They do some racing on this run. So, you know, but when it's not used for racing, I feel like a lot of people don't hit this run because it's in between some of the more iconic runs like Manitou and Badger Bowl. But it's always got good snow in there, and I really enjoy this one as well. It's just a really good intermediate kind of like groomer. Now when you come down, you're going to start having to go right, immediate right, and carry some speed to kind of get back to the Mountaintop Express. So we'll go past that quad, and then boom, we're going to be right over by the Mountaintop Express. And as you get further along, you want to carry just a little more speed because sometimes it can get a little flat at that bottom section there. All right, for the next one, we're going to move on down, and we're going to do Upper Ptarmigon, and then we're going to link up with JJ, which is their terrain park that has some of their bigger features and jumps. Now, they didn't have it built quite yet for this video, but this upper section, you can start to get a feel for all the different paths that you can take. So it's really fun for beginner and intermediate skiers and snowboarders because you can link up to all these different runs and kind of create your own trail, which is super cool, especially when you're at that skill level. So this is their terrain park. You can see they got some mounds getting ready to be pushed out. But yeah, usually in here they'll have a couple of jumps, usually some bigger jib features, things like that. And then as we get towards the bottom here, we're going to try to carry a little more speed so then we can make our way all the way back to that high speed quad. Next, we're going to take Badger Pass all the way down to Badger Bowl. Badger Pass was one of the original 8 that Cascade opened with, and from what I heard, this is only like speculation, but Ray Cook, the original owner, and his brother might have saw a badger while they were cutting the trail. We don't know if that's true or not, but it's a great story, so we are going to stick with it. This is going to feed through that little pod of like little, you know, kind of almost like a spider's web of runs, and then you're going to come down to a really pretty iconic run called Badger Bowl. It's also important to note that this is the last run that you'll be able to cut on this side of the beginner area, the magic carpet. All the other runs now are going to go through the beginner area. So just know that if you're going basically more to the right of this, looker's right of this, you're going to get funneled through the beginner terrain. So just something to keep in mind. Obviously, it's great for beginners, but you know, if you're looking to make hot laps, this is probably the furthest that you're going to want to go on the trail map. And this really is just a huge bowl. It just takes a huge turn. They actually have netting just in case you gain a little bit too much speed on Badger Bowl. But this is a fun one. I remember as a kid just blasting through here and having so much fun going up on like the wall of the bowl here and just kind of coming all the way around. And this is one that you're going to want to start to carry a little more speed to make sure that you get all the way back to the high speed quad. And next we're going to take Adele's Way all the way down and into Adele's Alley. And this is named after Rob's mom, Adele. This is a nice little narrow one. Now, they did add actually 2 more runs to the left of here, which weren't on the map at the time of when I actually skied here, but they put them in this off season. So excited to go check those out as well. These are just great beginner top to bottom runs. These are things that a lot of ski areas lack in the Midwest. They do not have a consistently pitched beginner run that goes all the way from the top to the bottom, and Cascade has it. It's phenomenal for those beginner skiers and snowboarders because they can feel like they're making a huge progress. You know, they go from the beginners area and they're able to take the high speed lift all the way up and then ski all the way down, and that's really, really exciting. Now, like I mentioned, you'll notice that we go above that ridge, and we're going to go up and over the beginner's area. So this will connect with the beginner's area. So you got to carry a little bit of speed as you get a little bit further down, just to be able to make it back to the high speed quad. But again, if you're using it for a beginner terrain, it's actually great because it funnels you right back into the beginner's area. There's no head wall that you have to worry about. There's no high speed areas. I mean, this is, yeah, like, it's a really nice beginner's area. Now, tucked in our right, we have Boarderland, and we're going to show that a little bit later. And then on our left is the beginner chair and area. So again, just connecting right back up with that, and you're going to take this all the way down in to connect back up with that high-speed quad. This is their beginner lift. This was installed back in 1982. It's a Borvig double. It is named Schoolmarm for obvious reasons. On our left, you're going to see the really beginner area with the magic carpet. We're going to talk about that, and you're going to get to see that in just a second. And on our right, it's going to be all the beginner area. They have another lift that wasn't running called Bunny. I'm not really sure on the origin of that one. I think it might have been moved from another area. And then on the other side of this patch of trees, which was closed off, but there's another lift there, a hall lift called Cottontail. And this was actually moved from Majestic ski area down by Grand Geneva, specifically because PW wanted to be able to take a lift back to his house. His house used to be located on the other side of that. So they actually relocated that. They went down, got it, and brought it back up and put it in there so he can ski his way back to his house. This is the beginner run here, so this is where, once you move up from the magic carpet, this is going to be the next step here. Nice, super mellow run, wide open, great beginning terrain. It's just awesome. I love the progression that Cascade has where you can, get started with this really mellow pitch run and then go up and take a run that's got a similar pitch, but it's so much longer. Again, it just makes you feel as a beginner much more accomplished, and I think it's a great area to learn how to ski. And then this is the other side. They did label these different. So there's Schoolmarm and then there's Bunny. So the left side where this tree cut is technically Bunny. You can see that chairlift right on our left there as well that I was talking about. But this will just run down. And obviously this is more of a redundant lift, so they'll run it if it's busy out. They can run both of those lifts, so then that way they can keep traffic moving. Big, nice, wide open space, though. Amazing for beginners. And we're going to actually head on over to their real beginner area in just a second, which is their magic carpet area. This was installed in 1996, and it was one of the first magic carpets in the area. I love this area because it is blocked off. You cannot get there unless you purposely ski into it. So it's amazing for kids when they're first starting. You don't have to worry about people running into you, high speed, anything like that. Just a dedicated, nice little beginner area, and it's great. And this is obviously where most people are going to get their very first start at, is on this carpet. Then they're going to graduate to the double chair, and then they're going to go all the way up on Mountaintop Express to ski Adele's all the way down. And as you can see, nice, really tame pitch, not very big, but perfect for those kids and those first-time skiers. And lastly, I told you we're going to come back to Boarderland. This is a really cool little zone. They did these like groomable glades where you can fit cats through the different spacings of trees. So it's like, it's gladed skiing, but it's all groomed. So it's great for intermediate skiers when they just want to get introduced to glades, have some like objects to ski around. It's really cool. And to get into this, you're basically going to take Adele's alley, and then at the very top, you're going to kind of peel off to skiers right, and you'll see the sign for Boarderland right up there. Cascade Mountain, you hold a special place in my heart. I think you have some amazing terrain for all ability levels, and the new pod has been absolutely amazing to see. If you haven't been to Cascade, I think you gotta put it on the list. It's one of those ski areas in the Midwest that you definitely need to visit at least once to say that you did. Great for kids. There's just it has a lot going for it. The fact that it's so close to the Dells, it's easy to get to off of 9094. It's awesome. We did miss a few things that we talked about. The new JL2 lift that was installed by Leitner Palma in 2022. That one's a redundant lift. It replaced the Mogul Monster lift a couple of years ago. So haven't ridden that one yet, but excited to eventually when I make it there and it's running. And we talked about the Manitou 1988 Borvik Quad. Again, that's more of a redundant lift that doesn't run super duper often. The two new runs up in that pod, that beginner pod up at the top by Mountaintop Express. That's West Debs and Over Yonder. So those are new for 2024. Haven't skied them yet. Excited to check those out. Cottontail, we talked about that area back there. And then a full far out run. This far out is that run that goes all the way around. It used to be the furthest out, hence the name, the furthest out run. Obviously, that's not true anymore. But a great one for beginners. It kind of comes all the way out and laps around. Does tend to get crowded though, so just be a little aware of that. If you're going out there on a crowded day, a lot of people kind of get funneled through that. So just something to be aware of. And then we missed a couple of connector runs along the way, but nothing major. Kind of gave you guys a full picture of Cascade Mountain. I'm going to put up on screen these cabins because these are really, really cool. We got some cool B-roll from these, and I love them. First of all, you can drive up to them. You use that road that we talked about by the Daisy Lodge up there. So you can pull your car right up to it with your food, your whatever you have, unpack it, put it in this thing. They're heated, they got Wi-Fi, so it's a great little hangout, and you can rent them for the day. So you don't sleep in them overnight, and that's a common question that we get. They're almost like a cabana at a pool where, you know, a family could set up shop, they can bring their own food in, they can sit there with a fire pit, and have a nice zone that's theirs, that they can call theirs, that everybody can check in and they can go do their own thing. So they have a number of them up there. They're awesome. We'll put some information from Cascade. You can check out those links if you want to rent them. I know they do rent out pretty quick on weekends and holidays. So if you guys are planning a trip, make sure you get those in sooner rather than later. Oh man, this was a really fun one to put together because it was like going through memory lane for me. Some of my first early memories of skiing came from Cascade Mountain, so it was fun to be able to relive that as we kind of film these POVs and go through them again. And I'd be curious to know, do you guys have any ski areas that kind of trigger those memories for you? Drop them in the comments below because we're starting to build out our POV filming list for this upcoming season, and we'd love to include some that you guys think we should be checking out. And if you enjoy this type of content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But until next time, I hope everybody has a great week. Pray for that snow, and I'll see you out there.